And in the spirit of Wangahau Niue language, we say Whakalofa lahi atu and welcome to Pacifica Inc. It's a very special morning because we have a very special guest who's joining us here on our Pacifica Inc. Zoom interviews. Very exciting news for for our oldest, I should say, and largest Pacific Women's non-governmental organizations. You know who they are, Pacifica Inc. Pacific Allied Women's Council inspires faith and ideals concerning all. They've been a staple of our Pacifica community here in Aotearoa. They've got some very exciting news to share with us all. And joining us is the president of Pacifica Inc. from the beautiful city of Dunedin, down in the deep south, Reverend Alofa Lale. Talofa lava, Reverend. Thank you for joining us here at Pacifica Inc.
Oh, whakalofa lahi atu, talofa lava and whawhitai to you for inviting me along to be here to speak with you and to share with you about this great news that we have received in the last week or so. So it's a pleasure to be here and happy to be able to share with you on this forum.
Thank you, Reverend. And I guess just to start, how are you? How are you and your family down in Dunedin amidst the pandemic we find ourselves in?
Yes, well, we are largely safe where we are. No cases so far in the South Island, so we have a very different day-to-day life compared to you in Auckland and those who are doing the hard yards for us up there in the north, and we can only sort of empathize with everyone there and keep everyone in our prayers. We have family in Auckland as well and in the upper north, so we keep in touch with them and try to encourage them and keep them in our prayers as well.
And Reverend, amidst all of this, like you said, some very
Mm.
special news for
Mm.
Pacifica Inc. The United Nations Economic and Social Council has granted Pacifica Inc. This is historic, special
Mm.
consultative status. Can you tell us about this?
Oh, well, myself, I've been very fortunate to attend the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN in 2016. And I had thought that I might have been able to go via the Pacifica Inc. connection, but there was no way we didn't have consultative status at that time, so couldn't go under that umbrella. But I was fortunate to be able to go under the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand. So even though I was there with that hat on, I was very much aware of Pacific issues like global warming and things like that, that I chose to go to parallel events that would talk about that and the issues. And it was it was really it was really exhilarating for me to be there and to see our women from the Pacific who had traveled over from Samoa to Valu, different parts of the Pacific, to be able to share about the issues around global warming. And just to be able to see other Pacific women in this forum was such a blessing for me. And then now to be in Pacifica 4 or 5 years later, and to now hear that we have been granted consultative status, so we can now attend the CSW, in the UN under the Pacifica umbrella. And for me, that is it's a great thing to do as a Pacific woman, to go under the umbrella of a Pacific organization that represents Pacific women, about 300 Pacific women across the country here in New Zealand. And it's just going to be give us so much more freedom to voice our concerns and our issues, and even perhaps celebrate anything that we feel needs celebrating as well in such a forum as that.
And Reverend, especially, on an international stage,
Mm,
of course, what does this mean for this group here in
yes, definitely. Well, the fact that we have largely been local, a local organisation and then a national organisation. We rely very heavily on our branches who do that work where they are on sort of, you can say, grassroots level, and then of course across the country and the national level. And we have our AGMs and we all come together and share all of our stories there. It's a direct relationship with our local. So we've been local and we've been national, and now with this great news of the consultative status, we are now global. And if anything, knowing our younger generation coming through, they are very globally aware. They're digitally aware, far more aware than I am of all the different ways of
Mm.
using the digital age. And just the fact that now we can, our young women can now look to not only local, national, but their voices can now be heard globally. So it's just a great way to be able to empower our women to be able to share their stories, to be able to lend their voices to issues that perhaps we've not been able to be as loud and proud as we would like to have been. That this now gives us that edge, that ability to be able to be around the table, not under anybody else's umbrella, but now under our own. So it's great.
And who would have thought 44, 45 years earlier that Pacifica would be here in this position? And I, I went online and I was just reading about the whole process. 57 successful applications out of 80. Yous were definitely one of them. So, what does this mean for the country and for Pacific women?
Oh, what it means to me is that, like I said, we're at the table now. We're able to be around the table and to be part of the conversation. And there's a saying that I've heard used a lot now, and it's been used a lot with Maori issues, and nothing about us without us. So it's when we're discussing things about Pacific, we need to be there. We need to be lending our voices to it. If people in the country in New Zealand, perhaps the government or local agencies, are talking about Pacific issues, how can you do that without Pacific input, without realizing what it is to be Pacific, the lens of a Pacific person? And I think we all know that we're different islands. We don't all have like the way Samoan people see something, the way Cook Island people see something might be different, but overall and overarching, we are people of the sea. We are tangata o le moana. We are navigators. We are people who have come from our homelands here to Aotearoa, New Zealand, to make a new home for ourselves here. But in making that new home here doesn't mean we lose our our roots, our we take those with us. So even though we might be here in New Zealand, the issues and the politics and the concerns that the Pacific have are our concerns too, and we lend our voices to strengthen our island people back home, as well as to strengthen our island women here. I think that when Patty Walker first started the conversation of wanting to start Pacifica, I do believe that she knew that we would be here one day. That was why she started it, so that Pacific women could be able to come together to have a voice. And whether it's locally, nationally, having our own ways of doing things, Patty knew that that was important. And that foundation was set back then, that now has bore fruit on into the future. And so I really do think that it was predestined. It started small, then a bit bigger, and now we're in the world.
And like you say, successive Pacific women like yourself have.
Yes, yes. So I feel as though we are basking in the glory of what was set before. And all of that hard work is now bearing fruit. And the prayers and the dreams and the vision that our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunties, the women who came to this country are now coming true.
And behind the scenes, like you said, a lot of hard work took place.
Oh, yes,
The,
yes.
this process actually started a few years ago, didn't it? Can you talk us?
Yes, well, it's a very like coming into the national presidency now. I had heard that the process had started, but we hadn't heard any results or anything. So, it began with our previous past executive with Tofilau Bernadette Pereira and Malia Manulelua. And Debbie Keisha Lloyd. And from then, they brought in the expertise of past presidents. And those past presidents, along with our previous past executive, put together the application. And it would have taken long hours. And one of the things I really do try to emphasize to the organization that we do so well, considering that much of it is voluntary. We'd have day jobs, and so much of what comes in as well as that is in our own time. And so to be able to prioritize that time to do something like this, and the application process is not an easy one. It takes a lot of time, and also I must admit it's in English. You would have to have great knowledge of the English language to be able to even comprehend what it is that they might be asking, and then to also put in our own flavor of our own Pacific flavor. And I'm sure that the people who did it, I think Diane, Jean, and Peggy were the ones who helped to put that together. And I mean, we're very fortunate in the Pacifica that we have such a great depth of, we have academics, we have, people of all ages and stages in life, and they all come together in times like this to produce real results such as this.
What's the next step now? Because you've got this huge, status. So where to from
Oh, I can only say where to is up, up, up from here. I mean, to be able to gain this status and to be able to say that we are now part of the consultative, you know, arena or sphere of EXOC makes us, you know, makes us, well, we're just going to have to up our game. We're just going to have to make sure that we can keep up with the issues that there are around the Pacific, that we can lend our voices to those ones that we feel that will be strengthened with our voice, and we can lend our stories and lend our expertise in terms of the people that we have within our organization. But I'm really excited about how our youth, our young women will be able to be empowered to know that the organization that they belong to, that Pacifica Inc., that they are members of, are now at a stage where we can consult nationally, globally, with the world around issues that are dear to our hearts. And that is something that is going to empower our women even more going on into the future.
And I was going to say, because you have over 20 branches across.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think it will help to grow our branches too. I mean, there's not many other platforms in New Zealand even where Pacific women can have their voices heard and shared across this organization. And now we're being seen as a force that can be shared around the world globally. So it's just exciting, what can happen from here.
And I like what you said about um, lending that voice to our Pacific
Mm,
community back home. Because
yeah.
it's
I think we have really strong roots. No matter if we're born in New Zealand, we still have very strong roots back to where our parents, our grandparents came from, and that link will never be diminished. And the fact that when we're around the table, we're talking about our home islands as well as New Zealand, that is now our home. that link, that connection never leaves us, no matter how small. Or and often it's not until you're much older that you recognize, oh my gosh, and I maybe haven't even been to my Pacific island where my parents came from, but I actually, when I see the Samoan flag being raised, or when I hear the national anthem, oh, there's something there. And I think those kinds of things, we recognize that it's an important part of us here in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
With parts of the country here, some of us are in lockdown, others are able
Oh,
to move around. What kind of an impact has this had on Pacifica Inc?
we're still sort of a bit, I don't want to say in shock, but because part of, the majority of our branches are in Auckland and in lockdown, and we've had to make changes to a few of our mini conferences that we have throughout the country. So we've had to go on to Zoom. So, and then our next meeting in November is now having to go to Zoom as well, which would have involved all the presidents from the different branches around the country. We now have to go to Zoom with that, and I mean, it's because we want to be keep everyone safe, but it's always nice to be able to see each other and to give each other a hug. And we're all getting used to the elbow thing now, though, where you elbow, you rub elbows, or yes, I know we're getting used to it, but it's not quite the same as, and I mean we still laugh over Zoom and enjoy and see each other, but it's not the same. So we will have to make adjustments as we go through. But we have a newsletter that comes out probably 3 times, 4 times a year, and usually it's when we need to get information out to our members. So that might be one of the first ways that we pass this information on. Then some branches may have been surprised to see it in the news first before seeing it, being told by branches, but we will be getting that information out and getting our branches to share the news with one another. And then, as you say, where to from here? And our next AGM is in Tokoroa next year in February. So I'm pretty sure that there will be some discussion there as well as to where we go from here. But we just wanted to say that over the lockdown period, the branches in Auckland have been running a Zoom called Koko Facts about COVID. So they've had a lovely lineup of panelists who talked about their experiences in COVID and shared it amongst other women. And it's become a very well loved and looked forward to forum for our women, and that's something that was spearheaded by our northern branches and our northern region. So it's something that, with COVID and with lockdown, it was something they thought was needed and would help our young and our women across the country. So they've had very good uptake for it, and up to 100 the other night that they had it as well. So they've got 2 more to go over the next few weeks, and then that will be that. But it's been a great initiative that's come out of this time of wanting to support one another.
Reverend, what would you say to our Pacifica women who may not be members of the organisation but see it as an opportunity to be part of something? What would you say to them?
Mm. Oh, well, at this time, I grew up in Pacifica in Porirua, where I was born in Wellington, so grew up in Cannons Creek in Porirua, and grew up with Pacifica when it started in the late 1970s. And when I moved to Dunedin, I sort of lost contact with things Pacific in terms of I was training, then went into a Palangi parish. And it wasn't until circumstances changed when the church I was ministering at closed down in 2015 And then the president of the Dunedin Central branch contacted me to say that they were having a branch meeting and they'd love for me to come along. And I says, oh, of course, I'd love to. And then it ended up being at my house. We invite everybody to come to my house to have the meeting there. And then they nominated me as president. I thought, oh, this is a stitch up. Really, they did. Oh gosh, I should have seen it coming. But the thing for me is when I agreed to take up the presidency role of Pacifica, I realized that that was something that I had missed for many years, is that Pacific connection, being a minister in a Palangi parish and Dunedin being a very Palangi city. There were not many instances where I would interact with Pacific women, except perhaps seeing people at weddings or funerals or different things like that. But this enabled me to actually go back to enjoying the company of Pacific women and enjoying the laughs and enjoying you just never know what's going to happen when you get together, and it's been great to be part of it. So I think for in terms of myself, I can be so busy and be entrenched in work and family and lots of other things that you become involved in and is a priority in your life. And yet I found that having Pacifica has been like just like the icing on the cake. So that's like, you got everything there, but you just need that icing on the cake to make it even better, and to be able to enjoy the company with other Pacific women and to laugh and to just be together is something that I have missed and hadn't realized how much I missed it until I got back into it. And so I would say to any Pacific women who are out there, and a lot of people who I see, a lot of women who I see, oh, have you heard of Pacifica? You should join. And it's always, oh, I'm too busy. I've got this, that, and that. Yes, you're busy, but which of those is for you, for yourself, to tap into something that will feed you. We're so busy feeding others, looking after others. What is it in your life that you do that is for you? And you just go along and you just enjoy having your meeting, discussing different issues and things, and deciding where you might want to put your energies. So that's a question that I will put to women here. What in your life is for you that makes things meaningful for you? It may be that yes, your family, your church, your everything. Excuse me, always become very emotional when I talk about things specific, and especially things close to my heart. But I would say, there are things in our lives probably we do because we've always done them. Are they as meaningful for you as perhaps they were in the past? Do you feel that the world will fall apart if you don't do that? Little questions that people can be asking themselves. And if you've never thought about becoming a member of Pacifica, just ask someone who's in Pacifica what it's like. Just maybe go along to a meeting and just see if it's something that you might like to be involved in. Now that we are local, national, global, there's so much more that we can do for Pacific throughout the world, not just in our little corner of the world, but across the whole world.
And Reverend, it's encouraging to hear because as a national and global organization, do you see that there are different, how do I put this, different issues that pertain to maybe South Island, North Island? Is that
Oh yes, yeah, I'm sure there are very much so. But one of the issues, or one of the causes that Pacifica is involved in at the moment, and that I have become involved in since I've become the president, is the gender pay gap. And just I've been blown away by the information that has been shared about just how Pacific women are 77 paid 70% lower than than Pākehā non-Pacific women, so that there's the big gap between, and the fact that it's not transparent, and you probably don't know when you're applying for a job about whether there's a pay gap for you and someone else, and you in the place that you're going to that you're applying to work at. And one of the things that mind the gap and government or the Ministry of Women are looking at is to make that pay gap more transparent, so that organizations with 50 or more employees be able to put on their website or put somewhere what the pay is for everyone in their organization. It can inform women more, Pacific women who probably go in thinking, oh, this pay is pretty good. But actually, compared to perhaps another organization where you could perhaps get better pay there doing the same work, but perhaps so it gives us more information to be able to go on. It gives us more language that we can use too in an interview, gives us more power to be able to go in and say, oh, well, so what's the gender pay gap at your place? Is it listed anywhere? Are you able to tell me if if there's another person doing the same job and not Pacific, that we are getting the same amount or same? Because I mean, many of us would do things for free because it's just the way we are. Oh yeah, that's all right. There's worse people off than us, but actually, no. Sometimes we are the bottom of the heap. So being able to give power to our women to be able to say those things when they go to a job interview. And so, what is how much am I being paid compared to somebody else who's doing the same job here at the is there a pay gap? And if there isn't, they'll probably be more likely to work for you than for someone where there is a disparaging pay gap between Pacific and non-Pacific. So little things like that that we're able to collaborate with different organizations and people who are trying to uplift women, Pacific women, Maori women. We partner very much with the Maori Women's Welfare League because they are like that's our sister organisation here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and we very much recognise the treaty as our part of a document that we live by. Without the treaty, we wouldn't be here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We are we are in collaboration with everybody because there's a partnership already in place between New Zealand and Māori and the government, the Crown. So we are here and we want to be part of the country and things that happen here as well. We've got a voice now. We've got a louder voice, perhaps. We had a voice before. It's not saying we didn't, but maybe we've got a louder voice now. Yes.
And with that voice, Reverend, we want to thank you for this opportunity.
Oh,
Congratulations to you and your
thank you so much.
we wish you nothing but the best. We look forward to talking to you in the future. Stay
Thank you
safe.
very much. And if you're not a member, Gladys, of Pacifica,
Guilty.
go along to your local branch perhaps and just make some connections there. I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms
I,
and take Emily with you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's lovely to be on this and to be made aware of the lovely work that you do. And I will keep in touch if there's anything else that comes up in my sphere here in Dunedin that I can share with you there.
be safe, Reverend. Take care.
Thank you, you too. Tō whāsoi fua.
Thanks for listening. Visit our website at www.pacificawire.com, We welcome you to like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to the full podcast on Spotify. Whaafatai, mai e manuia.